Okay, so I'm going to be going live with Derek Galanis, Clarence McClain, and Sydney Rosa. So I'm kind of starting this live over again. Um, Clarence is having a little bit of trouble joining, so I'm just going to wait for everybody to come in. Yeah, Clarence, go ahead and request. All right, so got that there. Derek, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, no problem. Clarence,
Yeah.
go request to join on the bottom, or I'll invite you. Sorry, Blackfire, we're just doing something today. Another time I could probably bring you on, though. All right, Clarence, so I just invited you. See if he can join here.
Here he comes.
Let's take some. All right,
Hi,
Clarence, how's it
There he
going?
is.
how you doing? My bad. I was on the another live with underrated talking about this whole Spence and Ugas, so I had to hurry up and get off the live. I almost forgot I had to get on here with you. How you gentlemen doing?
I'm doing
Good,
great.
good.
How you guys doing?
I'm good.
All right, so, usually in the live, I like to let people introduce themselves. Maybe, Clarence, you can go first, talk about your show and what you do.
All right. How y'all doing? My name is Clarence McClain. I'm the owner of the No Duck Zone podcast, McClain's Promotion, another brand I got. I basically represent amateur boxing. That's what my platform represents. I don't want to say New York amateur boxing because I really do it all over the world, but mostly amateur boxing in New York. I raise funds. I do a whole bunch of different things with the kids, giving back to the community. I actually have a cookout that I'm getting ready to do in New York in August, called the No Duck Zone Podcast Cookout. But it's back to school. It's for the kids. Book bags, crowns, giveaways, all type of stuff for the kids. So that's basically what I got going on, and that's what my brand represents. So if anybody's interested to come see what I do, you're more than welcome to DM me, and I can give you more information.
And Derek, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself for anyone who might not know who you are?
Sure. I'm a lifelong martial artist. I wrote 2 books. One on martial arts that heavily involves the fight game, boxing. I wrote another book on crime with a serious anti-criminal message, trying to keep kids away from that lifestyle. My passion is training kids just like Clarence. But, I'll tell you what, I haven't moved it as far forward as Clarence has. Hopefully one day I can get the same thing going for MMA.
So what we're doing today is we're talking about Spence versus Ugas, and I had discussed some of this with Clarence on his live. Whichever one of you guys kind of wants to go first, and maybe we could start by talking about, both fighters before we kind of talk about what we think about the fight itself. Either one of you can go. Maybe Clarence, if you want to go first.
Spence is he's a very special fighter. There's not too many fighters around like him. Um, this is a fight I had been waiting to see for a while, even though there's a lot of fans who boycotted, who said they didn't want to see this, and a lot of them were so-called Earl Spence fans. But I think this is going to be probably one of the best fights for this year, or maybe in boxing, period. Um, Ugas, he has that Cuban Olympian style, and we know how they fight over there. They're very difficult fighters over there. Um, we all are trying to figure out, some of us, which Earl Spencer we're going to see, because you got to understand he took a lot of time out before the whole car accident. I think after the car accident, if I'm not mistaken, he was out 14 months. And then he had the issue with the eye, so he was out about 15 months. That plays a big role. And when you're coming back into boxing, A lot of fighters, they usually ask for, they don't want hard fights. They want the little easy fights just to see where they're at. So when you come back and you don't ask for tune-ups, and your first opponent that you ask for when you come back is a Danny Garcia, now I'm looking at you like, this guy's crazy. You see, everybody said that should be easy because Danny had lost 3 fights. That doesn't mean anything. Danny was still, difficult, and he got through that. So for him to be out another 15 months, right, and knowing that he was supposed to got Pacquiao last summer, is because of the eye injury, he didn't get it. But I'm glad he didn't get Pacquiao because that would have went bad if he didn't know about the eye injury. So for you to come back now and to get Ugas, it's unbelievable. And I don't know fighters who come back like that and they want easy fights. They usually want tune-up fights. So this is what makes Errol Spence so special, and this is the reason why we'll probably never, ever see anything like this again. So, this is why I'm so excited about this fight.
You may want to come closer to your phone. I think you're getting some feedback from your sound. Derek, why don't you talk a little bit about
Okay, you hear me now?
I told him to talk about the 2 fighters first before we kind of talk about what we think might happen.
No problem. So, Spence has been a darling since at least 2015 when ESPN.com rated him Prospect of the Year. And since then he's exceeded all expectations. Like Clarence, I thought after the car accident he was done. I watched him a little bit. He looked like he had taken some damage from it, but maybe that wasn't actually the case. I thought then was the time for Pacquiao to jump on him. I thought, okay, Pacquiao should jump on the Spence fight right now. Didn't happen that way. Came back against Danny Garcia, who's another counterpuncher, sort of like Spence is. Spence won again. So I was very impressed with that. Now, with Ugas, I got to tell you guys, I knew he'd beat Pacquiao. And everybody was telling me, you don't know boxing, you don't understand. So, okay, we'll see. It's because Pacquiao is, my friends call it a rhythm fighter. I call it a push-slide fighter. He's always pushing forward. And Ugas, because he's got the particular Cuban style, sits there and waits for you. And also, the other thing is Pacquiao is very small. Ugas is a huge welterweight at this point. So, I love them both. Yeah. I can't wait to see how those 2 styles mesh.
Now, maybe we could let's first talk about Spence, and you can kind of just talk about what you think his abilities are. Go ahead, Clarence.
Oh, who are we talking about? Spence? Oh, which one? Abilities or which one?
Yeah, we'll talk about the 2 fighters. Just for people watching this don't know anything.
I mean, it's very simple with Spence. The thing is, Spence is a smart fighter, but the thing is, he can make it any type of fight you want to make it. When he was in the Mikey Garcia fight, I hate to bring it up, but even in the Mikey Garcia fight, he fought the way he was supposed to. And even though people were like, yo, I want to see him knock Mikey out, but that wasn't the goal to do that. He could have easily did that if he wanted, but he fought that smart. He has the ability to fight you smart, but he can make it any type of fight you want to make it. But at the same time, he's going to be smart. You understand? And not too many fighters do that. There's certain fighters out there, you can take them out their game plan, and they'll start off fighting you smart, but then they start fighting your fight. And one thing about him, he's not going to do that. And it's the same thing for Ugas. It's the same thing with him. Whatever you want to do, he's willing to do it with you, but at the same time, he's going to be smart. So like my brother down here said, it is going to be a great fight because to see these 2 styles match up is going to be great. And I think as the fight go on, it's going to probably have to take these guys maybe 4 or 5 rounds to fill each other out. And I think after those rounds, either one of them are going to figure each other out, and then that's when we're going to really see who's the best at 147 after those rounds.
Now, Derek, what's your impressions of these 2 guys?
Well, if we're talking about Spence, Spence reminds me a lot of Sugar Ray Leonard, meaning, he's a boxer puncher and he can slam with you or he can box with you. And he chose to outbox Mikey Garcia. I don't know why that was his decision. He probably could have stopped him, but he did, and he pitched a shutout. At the same time, Spence can hit. Look, Kell Brook was undefeated at welterweight when Spence knocked him out for the title. Spence is a banger as well. But that melds in to Ugas, right? And what he's going to do and how he's going to fight Ugas. We saw that Manny Pacquiao, and we know this from Manny Pacquiao, is incapable of changing his game plan, right? That's why he got knocked out by Juan Manuel Marquez. Like, I'm going to keep coming. I'm going to go faster and stronger. And eventually, in the fourth fight, he got KO'd. So Pacquiao did the same thing with Ugas. And, okay, Ugas doesn't have the power to knock him out, but he did the same thing, essentially, that Marquez did by being a counterpuncher. The question really is, for me, the biggest question we have, we know what Ugas is going to do. What is Errol Spence going to do?
Yeah.
Now that you brought that up, Derek, what do you think Ugas would do against Spence, in your opinion? What do you think he's going to do?
Ugas does the same thing every time. Look, Ugas sits there and he allows the opponent to come to him. And it's kind of weird, right? Because Ugas is this big, muscular, giant welterweight playing counterpuncher, right? It's something we expect from a guy like Danny Garcia, but from a guy like Ugas, we're used to seeing people plod forward and throw power game. And that's just not his game. Ugas is going to sit and he's going to wait for Spence to react. Now, how Spence gets off on that, I can't wait to see. Depends how Ugas reacts to his power, but look, at welterweight, Ugas has been able to absorb everything. I would give to you he's undefeated at welterweight because that robbery against Sean Porter shouldn't even really be counted. So, we're going to see if Spence can do anything. I don't know.
Now,
Yeah.
Clarence, kind of what Derek brought up. This is more for you guys to talk about, not me, but because I'm not really discussing. I brought you guys on to discuss it. With Ugas, Derek was saying he prefers to wait. Is that going to be a good thing to do against Spence?
Probably not. But like he said, the thing that worries me, right, what Spence is coming in, and it plays a role. If we were to constantly see Spence fight, then it'd be more easier for me to answer this. So it's like, I'm not in training camp with him. We see the videos. We see how he's doing. But see, you can do all that and then get in there and perform a different way. And being that Spence is the likable guy more than Ugas is, of course, everybody's going to go for him. But let's just be real. Let's just be real. I don't have time to be a fanboy. I'm not going to do that. We have to see what Spence is coming in. And we don't know. All I know is whoever gets hit with the first shot, I want to see how they're going to take it. When Spence gets hit, and not to bring up the eye situation, even though he says he's good in the eye, we still don't know. One punch in that eye could change all that. We don't know. We've seen it happen before, So, like I said, this Saturday night, we just got to wait and see what happens.
And Derek, you brought up the point, that Spence is more kind of like Sugar Ray Leonard in that he can do multiple things. Do you think Ugas' style of waiting to see is going to be something that's, to his benefit, fighting Spence?
Well, yeah, we're going to see Saturday, but let me say this. So Ugas, was a featherweight as an amateur, and eventually he had a loss or two, and he moved up to lightweight. Same thing as a pro. He lost a minor title fight for a super lightweight title, moved up to welterweight. And as you gain body weight, the water comes back into your brain. This is the supposed science. I don't know if it's true, but you can take a lot more punishment. If Ugas can take Spence's power, I gotta think that Ugas has a real advantage. But that's a big if, because Spence is undefeated. He is a bad man. So we're going to see. We know one thing. Ugas isn't going to fight another way. Ugas is going to stand there, and he's going to fight the same way he's fought everybody else. And listen, Omar Figueroa was a beast as well. Ugas pitched a shutout. And I hate to do this because, I don't believe A beating C, B beating C doesn't mean C beats A. But I believe personally that Sean Porter's fight with Ugas, I think Ugas was more convincing with Porter than Spence was even. Does not mean I think Ugas is going to win. I think Spence is going to find a way to win. But I do believe if you compare those two fights, it just makes a bigger mystery for everybody.
Now let's talk about. I know you said. Well, now that you brought it up, you said you think Spence is going to win. Why?
Because I think Spence is one of those generational fighters. Like, we're in a great time with the welterweights, right? It's so cool. It reminds me of Donald Curry, Milton McCrory, Sugar Ray Leonard, Tommy Hearns, that time. Some are going to be superstars. Some are going to be second tier. Probably Danny Garcia's the second tier we're talking about. But I think Spence outshines them all. Ugas could be a big problem because, let's face it, look, he's Cuban. Right? He's not going to be the America's darling. I don't even know if he speaks English. So, I mean, it's a really hurdle. He doesn't, does he? Yeah. Well, I speak Spanish, but most people don't. So, I mean, for American fans to really get in your corner, you usually have to speak English. And I know Julio Cesar Chavez promised for years he was going to learn, and he never did. Looks like Canelo's learning a little bit, but I don't think Ugas is going to learn it.
Yeah, and now for Clarence, since we're on the subject of Spence winning, if he does, how do you think he would?
He's going to have to go in there and outbox Ugas, but he's going to have to at the same time be smart with it, and that's what makes him so different, because he goes in there with this game plan where it takes you out of your game plan and you get frustrated. The thing is with Ugas is not to get frustrated, because Earl's the type of fighter you'll get aggravated with him. If you look at the fight with him and Sean Porter was trying to make it much as a dog fight, but at the same time I could see he was getting frustrated and getting aggravated. And like I said, he's the type of fighter that'll do that to you. You'll lose patience with him. And if I had to deal with Errol, he would aggravate me, where the referee would have to take a point from me, because I'll have to knee him or throw an elbow. It's messed up, but he will aggravate you like that. But he's going to have to fight a smart fight, and I believe he's going to do that. But I also believe at some point in the fight, he's going to aggravate Ugas, where Ugas might have a point taken away from him. Just mark my words, if it happens, I said it here first. But he's going to fight a smart fight. It's hard for me to pick who I want to win, because in the Crawford and Sean fight, believe it or not, I was actually going for Sean. And that plan turned out bad. So with this one, I'm not really picking who I want to win, but I know they're going to make it a dog fight. It's probably going to be more important for Ugas to win, because I believe he'll be the first Cuban to win 3 titles. So, it's a big deal for him and his country. But at the same time, it'll be an even bigger deal for Errol, who was out all this months, who was in a car accident. If, God forbid, if something would have happened to him in 2019, he wouldn't be in this position. This probably would have been Crawford in this position. Who knows? And then for him to have an eye injury, so for the man upstairs to give him a third opportunity, man, it's a beautiful thing. Life is amazing, man. So, like I said, Saturday, if you're not watching this fight, if you're boycotting it, I don't know what's wrong with you. You need to find a whole new sport to watch.
Let's start with this. Let's flip it. If Ugas wins, how does he win?
Say that again, Todd.
Let's flip it.
You were breaking up.
Yeah. If Ugas wins, how does Ugas win?
Well, so let me say this. We all know that Sean Porter got a gift over Ugas from the judges. And there were a lot of factors going in there. I mean, the Porter-Spence fight, I believe, was already made. So there was a lot of factors in that. Ugas is going to wait. And sometimes judges don't like that. But listen, my guess is if Spence overextends himself and Ugas catches him a couple times and the judges make it very clear that that is what's happening, that's how Ugas is going to win. He's got to wait. He's got to counterpunch, which he's going to do. Hopefully he actually stuns Spence once or twice. He's not going to knock him out. He's not a power puncher. But do something that the judges cannot ignore. Because otherwise, I think you've got to give it, just like Porter had the advantage, Spence has got the advantage with the judges. You know, he's the darling in this fight. Ugas is the big foreigner that's going to wreck the superstar. So, you know, I think Spence is going to have those judges in his corner. Ugas has got to do something to bring them to his side, and that's stunning Spence.
Now, do you think because of his size, he could maybe make the fight ugly, or, you know, kind of do
I think
stuff?
I think he's an anomaly in that he's a counterpuncher who's large. Counterpunchers aren't usually giant men. So I think it's very awkward to begin with. You know, I don't know who's going to foul who. I get it. Clarence said I think Errol could get frustrated. You know, and maybe Errol's going to bring something out of Ugas, or I'm not sure. I never known Ugas to be a dirty fighter, but he never needed to be. But, you know, look, Cuban boxing is all hands on deck, so we'll see.
Now, Clarence, maybe you could talk a little bit about this too. Let's say Ugas wins. How do you think he would do it? Same as Derek, or?
Same. He's gonna have to just. He's gonna have to be. You know, the crazy thing about it. You know, he's not just fighting Spence. He has to fight with the judges because, like he said, he's in his hometown, and that's going to be so difficult. If you can go in there and you can get a victory, not just over Spence, but you can get it over in Dallas, Texas. It was never done, never heard of. And like I said, the one thing about boxing, we can speak about it all we want, but then we can get in there and something else can go. You know, he doesn't have the power punch to knock Spence out. We all know that. He can't do that. But if he can just catch him with 1 or 2 or 3 shots, but he has to get he has to not only get the crowd's attention, but the judges. Because the judges see it different from how we see it. We can see it one way and the judges see it another way. And now when we hear the scorecards, we're like, what fight were you watching? So, you know, he's going to have to do that. He's going to have to go in there and basically try to bully Spence in his own backyard. Because that's what Spence is coming to do. Spence is coming to push him around and be the bully because he's like, you're in my backyard. I'm comfortable. I got my friends and family here. I'm all right. These judges are going to be with me. The guy who runs the stadium, me and him are friends. So, you know, he's going to have to go in there. He's going to have to go in there and change all that. And if he can do that, hey, we might see an upset Saturday.
Mm-hmm. Now, let's talk about, let's say, if Ugas was going to win, would he have to? Do you think he'd have to win by a large margin to get the decision, or Derek?
Well, listen, we already saw what happens to Ugas when he makes it close, right? That robbery against Sean Porter. Do I think a robbery like that could happen in Dallas? You bet I do. Where are they, at Cowboy Stadium again?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Yeah. That may be very well what's going to happen. I hope it doesn't. I mean, look, the Porter-Ugas fight wasn't even close. I mean, Ugas won that fight by probably 4 rounds. But, you know, one thing I want to say is kind of interesting is Porter boxed from the outside. And why did he do that? He did that because he did not want to run into Ugas's counterpunching. And clearly he respected Ugas's power. If you remember the way Porter fought Thurman, he didn't do that. He mugged Keith Thurman. And by the way, I thought Porter won that fight with Thurman. So he mugged Thurman against the ropes. He didn't do that with Ugas. He stayed on the outside with his jab. So that shows you that in some way he respected Ugas's counterpunching and power. I can't wait to see what Spence does. My guess is Spence is going to be tactical, but I don't see him boxing on the outside like that. I don't see him turning into Sugar Ray Leonard. Spence has got too much of an aggressive bone in him. And look, he knocked out Algieri. He knocked out Brook. I mean, he is a power hitter. So, yeah, we're going to see.
Now, same question to you, Clarence. You know, if Ugas was going to win, I mean, Derek kind of said what he thought. Do you think Ugas would have to win by a large margin or maybe stop Spence?
Like you said, every time he got close, decision was just never on his side. He's gonna have to go in there and do something different from all the other fights. You're gonna have to go in there and basically try to embarrass. The same advice I would give on the Devin Haney and George Kambosos. I said Devin Haney has to go to Australia and he has to embarrass George, and that's what he's gonna have to do. You're gonna have to go in there and embarrass him. Sometimes boxing good is not good enough, because at the end of the day, you could think that you did good, but the judges still could raise Spence's hand, so he could still be the winner. So you have to basically go in there with a different type of game plan and from all the other fights, because other than that, if they give it to him, then it's like it's not going to matter. So that's what he's going to have to do. He's going to have to go in there and really get those judges on his side. But I believe Ugas knows what he's up against, and he would be crazy to not know what he's up against. But of course he knows. That's why he accepted this fight. So he knows what he has to do in there.
Now, having said that, Clarence, and what we brought up for Ugas to win, does that mean he kind of changes his normal tactics?
Oh, that could be a yes, and it could be a no. It could be a yes for changing it because there's some, like I said, Spence is very different. So you might have to add a few different routines to what you're not used to doing. And then no, because then it could cost you. Because you didn't stick to the game plan. You went in there and you fought stupid, and it cost you. So that's kind of a yes or no answer. But I don't know. Like I said, Spence is something special, and it's not to take anything away from Ugas, but Spence is just very special, very. And Saturday night, if he's victorious, and even if Spence was to lose, I still wouldn't take anything from him because he was still special. Just taking this fight, coming back, taking 2 tough fights, I wouldn't have did it. If I'm Derek James, I'm like, man, are you crazy? You have to be suicidal. But that's just the type of person that Spence is. So we'll see Saturday.
And same question to you, Derek. I mean, both of you were saying that Spence would have to win convincingly. So do you think it's going to change his tactics?
No, I mean, I think what we're both saying is for Ugas to win, he's got to win overwhelmingly because Spence already has the judges on his side. And the other thing, too, is this is really a placeholder fight, too. And for what? Everybody's waiting for Terrence Crawford versus Errol Spence. That's an all-American showdown. Reminds us of Sugar Ray Leonard versus Tommy Hearns. We can get into that one after this fight now. Ugas is in the way. I hate to say this. The way most people look at Ugas is as kind of a boring fighter. People don't like counter punchers. They're not familiar with it. He doesn't speak the language anyway. We may see, and I'm not saying this can happen because Spence could win convincingly. And by the way, I hope he does, and I think he will. But we may see another robbery like we saw with Sean Porter because they don't want to ruin the potential Spence-Crawford fight. And when I say they, I don't even know who I mean, Todd, so don't press me on that.
Right. But you don't think because he's going to have to alter his normal output or strategy, tactics, that it's going to have a pretty big impact on the fight, more so than it would have if he had fought, somebody else when we're talking about it.
Well, I'll say it again, Todd. Ugas is not going to change. Man has an amateur Cuban background. All those guys got 300 million fights, right? He's not going to change how he fights. He just can't do it. That's how he fights, and that's how he's going to fight. The question really is what Spence does. Does Spence try to become Mikey Garcia? Because if he, or excuse me, how he fought Mikey Garcia? Because if he does, then we got a really ugly fight in our hand. We got Spence boxing and we got Ugas counterpunching. And if it lands up like that, that will be a tragedy for boxing. I fully expect Spence to push. The question really is, can Spence hurt Ugas? Can Ugas hurt Spence? How is that gonna go? It's the irresistible force versus the immovable object. The George Foreman Mike Tyson fight we never got to see. I mean, I can't wait to see it.
Now, like speculate on Crawford and Spence, but maybe we could just talk about fights that are already kind of like booked first. You got Tank Davis coming up. He's fighting Romero. Um,
Yeah.
what do you guys think about that? Maybe Clarence, you could go first.
Um, when I first heard about it, the first time I heard about it, because this is the second time we're hearing about it. Um, I wasn't really too impressed about it. I didn't know much about Rolly. I started doing my background, checks on him, and I wasn't really too impressed. I mean, the kid has heart though. One thing I could give him. Um, for what I see, it's supposed to be Tank's, I guess, his last fight on his contract with Floyd. So this is who they're giving him, which I wanted to see it a second time because I was like, you know what, let's see what happens. For Rolly to get this shot again, because they could have moved on and gave Tank anybody else. So to give him, it's interesting. But for Rolly to think that he's going to go in there and knock Tank out like he says, that's just all entertainment. He knows damn well he's not going to go in there and knock no Tank out. Even though anything can happen, believe me, out of all people that Tank could get knocked out by, Rolly's not one of them. Rolly's more like one of those WWF guys. He's entertaining. He's gonna try to sell, and that's what he is. So it's gonna be funny. I'm gonna actually be there next month on the 28th for it. So I just can't wait for it.
Now, Derek, do you have any thoughts about that fight?
Yeah, well, okay, so I got to go dive into history a little bit. When Floyd Jr. was coming up, he was knocking out. First of all, his first title was against Gennaro Hernandez. Hernandez was like a 6'1", 130-pounder, like very rare. And Larry Merchant was making fun of Floyd and his whole family coming to the ring, like, well, they're rushing him because they all want to enjoy the money. Something that was really kind of inappropriate. Now, and Floyd went on there. He knocked out Diego Corrales, too. I mean, Floyd took on the best in the world at that time. Now, there's a part 2 to Floyd Mayweather's career. Floyd Mayweather started realizing, wait a minute, I'm on top of the world now. What is the most amount of money for the least amount of risk, or at least comparable? Let me give you an example. Robert the Ghost Guerrera, who was a great fighter, but a couple of weight classes down, fighting Floyd, where Floyd made $75 million for what he knew was a sparring session. It looks to me like Floyd is moving Tank Davis like the second part of his career. I'd like to see Tank get tested. And I understand, they're picking up those WBA regular titles that hopefully will be gone from boxing really soon. But I really want to see Tank in the mix. And unfortunately, his relationship with Floyd has prevented that, right? There's a whole bunch of lightweight boxers that Bob Arum has under Top Rank, right? We got Lomachenko, we got Kambosos, we got Teofimo Lopez. I mean, all those guys are the guys I want to see Tank Davis fight. And just like Crawford finally left Arum to get onto the PBC welterweight bandwagon, hopefully that's what's going to come of the Gervonta Davis. And as for Raleigh, like Clarence, I don't know. I don't know a thing about him, and I never researched him, so I don't want to say anything.
While we're on the subject of what Derek just brought up, Clarence, where Tank is on his last fight, where do you think he goes if he wins?
Well, this is going to sound crazy. I looked at something just yesterday where they were saying something about maybe he can go over to the zone, but I'm like, no, I wouldn't be interested in seeing him. There's only one place for him left to go, and he's going to find himself making the same move that Devin Haney did. Don't be too surprised if you look up and see Tank over at Top Rank. It's a possibility because I keep telling people this, and Floyd has said this a million times. Tank, I believe, said in the interview, I can't remember what interview it was, that he didn't want to, he wanted to stay with Al Heyman. But you have to understand, if you're going to do business with Al Heyman, you're doing business with Floyd. You can't get around that because Floyd says it a million times, Al Heyman owes me. He owes me. I don't know what he owe him. I guess I don't know. It's not my business. But he owes him. So anybody has to understand. This even goes for Crawford, who says, "I don't want to sign to the PBC." Yeah, well, you don't want to do nothing with Floyd, but you might be interested in Al. You can't, man. It doesn't work like that. But that's where I see him maybe going. I can't see Tank going anywhere else. And the thing is, it's not even about who you go to. It's about if I get here, am I going to get the fights I'm looking for? I would love to see Shakur. I mean, excuse me. I would love to see Shakur and Tank maybe fight one day, or Devin and Tank. I would love to see that. That would be big, and so that might be the place he might have to go to. Everybody's saying that Top Rank is not, they're this, they're that, they're dirty. But guess what? That's where the best fights are happening at. So that might be the best decision for Tank. The Tank is gonna have to sit down with Floyd, with Leonard Ellaby, and they're gonna sit down and make the best decisions. He has to make the best decisions for him and his family, because at the end of the day, when Floyd and Leonard is gone, he's gonna have his family, the people that's been with him. So I'm sure Tank is smart, and he'll make the best decision for him and his family.
You might want to move your phone or something. It's getting a lot of feedback, like high pitched.
You talking about me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. What about?
It might be the.
It usually don't do that. I don't know if it's the. I don't know if it's the I don't know. The service has been going like crazy. I don't know. All right, we're gonna try it now.
I think it's a bit closer to it. It might be all right. But Derek, same question to you. Where do you think Davis might end up going?
Well, so I didn't even think until Clarence said it about the Al Heyman-Floyd connection. But yeah, it's there. We all know it. So that's a factor. But the only place for a lightweight to go where he really wants the money fights is with Top Rank. But the question really is that what Tank wants? People can say they want something, and the reality is they want to fight for WBA regular titles, they want to make money, and they don't really want to be tested on the top level. Because one thing about the top level, anybody can beat anybody. I mean, and so maybe he doesn't want to take that kind of risk. I don't know. I'm not inside of his head. I mean, I can tell you, I do know that his trainer was the inspiration for that character, Cuddy in The Wire, which is just incredible. A guy who came out of prison said, I'm going to train the neighborhood boxing kids. The exact same thing really Clarence is doing with his amateur program. And everybody knows the amateurs are the reason pro boxing is what it is. We have built up a base that is so strong in that. So I respect what that guy did, and Gervonta Davis is the fruit of all that work. I hope it goes well for him. I would like him as a fan, selfish fan, I would like to see him in Top Rank. Why? Because then I get him versus Lomachenko. Then I get him versus Shakur Stevenson. Then I get him versus Kambosos. Then I get him versus Teofimo Lopez. That is the logical fan's destination for him. Is that the logical fighter's destination? When we're kids, and I grew up as a boxing fan, we think about the best fights. We don't understand why they're not happening. You grow up and you realize, wait a minute, it's about the money. This is about feeding my family for the rest of my life. And that's a different equation. And so I don't throw stones at anybody who makes that decision. I don't dislike what Floyd did late in his career. I mean, Floyd was banking cash, fighting guys like the Ghost Guerrero, and even, to be honest with you, at that point, Victor Ortiz. I mean, Victor Ortiz had failed in all his biggest fights. As much talent as he had, he was a head case, which a lot of fighters are. And Floyd knew the guy had no way to beat him. And so he gives him the fight, rakes in, I don't know how much he made for that fight, but probably in the neighborhood of the Ghost Guerrero fight. So if that's what Tank decides to do and he can be successful at it, great. Now, I will say this, though. Floyd fought the Angel Manfredis. Floyd fought the Diego Corraleses. Floyd fought Gennaro Hernandez before he took that avenue. Tank hasn't done any of that. So I don't want to see him build a career off of fighting second-tier guys. And I'd hate for that to be the case. With Raleigh, I don't really know him, but people say he's a contender. So let's see. Let's see how it goes.
You know, if Tank is considering leaving Mayweather, then it might lead to you to think that he doesn't want to fight second tier guys either, right? I mean, he could do
Maybe.
that with Floyd.
Yeah, yeah. He's been doing it for some time now. I believe Tank is about 27, 28. You got to remember, this sport is not forever, as far as you lasting in it. At some point, you have to make a decision where you have to walk away. So it's like, why not get it while these guys are young? You look at the Devin Haney's, you look at the Shakurs, all these guys are young, anywhere between 23 and 28 years old. We have no time to say, okay, 3 years from now, we can make the fight happen. You don't know where you could be 3 years from now. You can, God forbid, be in a car accident like Spence was 3 years from now. You don't know what your situation is, and you don't know if you'll walk away from it. You don't know if you're paralyzed. So the thing is, you have to take these fights now. If you're going, I mean, a lot of these guys say they like Errol, they look up to him, but just look at the path that he's taking. You got to take these fights now. If he could take these fights after coming out of a car accident and then an eye injury, what's your excuse? But it's like you said, sometimes you want the belt or you want the money, but you don't want to have to go through the opponent to get it. You don't want to go through the hard opponents to get it. You want the easy route. Nah, I don't want to fight him. I'd rather take him. I could get him out of here in the 5th round, but this guy, I don't want to go 12 rounds with him. I don't want to do it. It's sad, but that's how the sport is, set up.
Yeah, and same question to you, Derek. Like, if he's looking to leave Mayweather, that must mean that he is wanting to fight better competition, because he could stay with Mayweather and fight the same kind of guys.
Right. I mean, I can see how you could say that, right? That's a theory. But maybe the theory also is maybe there's a money issue.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Floyd, wants more money than Tank wants to give him. We don't know what's happening behind closed doors. We can speculate based on what we know about boxing, but behind the scenes, we don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. So let's kind of get into Crawford and Spence. If Spence wins this, which both of you expect him to do, maybe we should just talk about it. Clarence, you could go first.
Well, there's a rumor around basically saying that Crawford is not even showing up for this fight, which I was hoping that he would, and he would step in and him and Spence could do the back and forth. Well, come on, let's do it, and let's set the date. Let's do it, and he's not. But honestly, this is a conversation that's been going on probably since 2018, and I've talked about it so many times where I've said, you know what, if they don't fight, I'm not going to entertain it anymore, because I think we want to see it more than the fighters want to see it. I mean, Spence said, when I clean up my side of the street, me and him could do it. So that's basically saying, hey, after Ugas, if you want, let's do it. Let's make something happen. But Bud seems not to be interested. He had one video where he's in the ocean, he's in the water, and he's looking for the big fish, and he's calling Errol, and then the next time you talk to him, I'm not interested. So to me, it's like dealing with a bipolar person. It's kind of confusing. I don't know what he wants. But if we don't see this fight, it's highway robbery. Like I tell people, what would boxing be if Sugar Ray Leonard and Marvin Hagler wouldn't have fought? What would boxing be if that fight didn't happen? And they made it, even though Sugar didn't want it at first, but then eventually it happened. And these guys got to make it happen now. Because if you don't make it happen now, there's a young guy by the name of Jerron Boots Ennis right now who's trying to come after the both of you. And you two are going to have to make a decision. Fight and make as much money as we can and go on to the next weight class. But if not, you got to get out the way, because this young lion is looking at the both of you, and he doesn't care which one he gets fed to. He doesn't care. He wants both of you. He's young. He's fresh. So eventually y'all have to make this fight, or one of you two are going to have to decide which one of us is going to fight him. So let's hope before the year is up and after Saturday, we can see a Spence and Bud.
Now, what do you think, Derek?
Well, I think that, Terrence Crawford has had a really hard time with Arum. I think he probably thinks that Arum was lying to him. And the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. Terrence is not a draw. He's a guy from Nebraska. He's not from out west or back east. So, when you're in the middle of the country like that, sometimes you don't attract the limelight or the fan base or whatnot, which is nothing to take away from his achievements. The guy is incredible. Now, that having been said, does he want to be a superstar? The only way he will ever be a superstar, and we know this now, is if he fights and beats Errol Spence. Him acting disinterested, in my personal opinion, I don't know, obviously, I think after all that time with Arum and all that frustration, he's trying to game in public. I think it's pretty transparent. I mean, it makes me laugh. I think he'd sign on the line for a Spence fight in a second if he could. I mean, that's what he says his dreams have been. And then, look, you got one weight class up. There's Charlo sitting there for both of them. So, the amount of fights you can make are incredible. And, Canelo, they better get up there pretty soon before Canelo becomes a full-fledged light heavyweight. I mean, we're going to see what happens with that. But for me, and this is why I don't agree with the naysayers, this is an exciting time in boxing, man. I mean, the welterweights that we have, the middleweights we have, I mean, it is just, it's better than it's ever been. And, ironically, I think we can thank the UFC for that. It raised all combat sports. And I remember back in the early days, 2000, all the way up into 2008, when UFC is getting really big, boxers were very prejudiced against UFC. Well, now, those of us who love boxing, it's in the limelight, man, and I love it. We get to watch fights on regular TV again. And ESPN used to be B-level boxing. Now we have pay-per-view level fights on ESPN.
Now,
Yeah.
what's a fight that is also signed that you guys are looking forward to? I'll let you go first, Clarence.
Oh, say that again?
A fight that is signed, at least, that both of you are looking forward to.
Oh. We have Shakur Stevenson and Oscar Valdez. We have Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrero, which I'm looking, that's happening right here in my city, Madison Square Garden. I think I'm looking at that fight more than any other fight because we have two women headlining the Garden. So for me, that will be the most important one out of all the fights because we know the women don't get treated fairly in women's boxing, and they don't get paid fair enough like the men do. So and I think that's something that needs to change because they fight and train just as hard as the men. So yeah, that's probably one of the biggest fights I'm looking forward to for this year, but also the Shakur Stevenson and Oscar Valdez, because Shakur wanted that fight for so long. For about 2 years, he was chasing it, and now he finally got it, which just shows you never give up on something that you want because you might not get it when you want it, but it's going to come. You just have to be patient with it. But yeah, those fights, and let's see who else. I'm waiting to see what happens after David Benavidez has his fight, because I would love to see maybe eventually him and Caleb Plant. We know the Canelo fight is not going to happen, so we all can stop dwelling on that. But hopefully, Caleb Plant and David Benavidez will happen. But we're not done with the year yet, so I have a feeling after April, May, and June is over, we're going to see a lot of exciting fights before the year is up. It's going to be some surprise fights that we didn't see coming, and it's great, man. I'm just great to be a part of it and be around. This is a great time for boxing.
Now, Derek, maybe comment on the two fights that he brought up.
Remind me, Todd.
Oh, well, he brought up Stevens and who was Stevens fighting? Valdez. And then he brought up Serrano's fight at the Madison Square Garden. So.
Okay, so Shakur Stevenson is the next superstar. And I just hope he gets there soon enough to beat guys up like Lomachenko, Teofimo Lopez, Kambosos. I hope they move him in weight fast enough to get there. So can you hear me? I got a little.
No, we got it.
So
Yeah.
for Shakur, I'm really hopeful. He puts that fight away and gets to even bigger fish to fry. I think he is one of the best defensive boxers we've ever seen. And, that's what Floyd was. That's what gave him that longevity. That's what made Floyd undefeated. What is he, 51-0 now? So I expect the same type of things from Shakur on a even higher level. What was the other fight?
He asked about Amanda Serrano's fight at Madison Square Garden.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, Serrano is fighting for Jake Paul right now, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So, I want to say this. Jake Paul, a lot of people give him crap, so to speak. And I think he's been good for all combat sports. I love the way he's knocking out those MMA guys. He's exposing them as basic boxers, which I used to do in the gym every day, except I'm an old man no one knows, so no one cares. He's knocking people out, in public. World champions, too. We're not talking about guys who didn't accomplish. We're talking about world MMA champions. Jake Paul, Mr. 5-0, beginning boxer is KOing him. So I think he's awesome. And the fact that what he's trying to do for UFC pay is awesome. And then finally, and Clarence brought this up, what he's doing for women's boxing is awesome. I remember when women's boxing really was in its nascent day. It was Chrissy Martin, the coal miner's daughter. And, she had really basic skills. And the WBC even awarded her a belt because there were no divisions. There were no belts. They just kind of gave her the gift belt and they'd bring her on the pay-per-views. So I can't wait for women's boxing to get as high as men's boxing. Todd, that women's MMA is already almost there. I mean, those girls fight harder than the guys fight. I hope that boxing can enjoy the same thing that MMA is already enjoying with that.
Now, Derek, I'm just going to ask you, what do you think about Tyrone Spong signing to fight Andy Ruiz and Triller?
So Spence was a kickboxer, if I remember correctly, right? That converted to MMA for a little while. Yeah, I mean, listen, if they're going to fight with boxing gloves, Andy Ruiz is going to hurt the man. Boxing is a refined sport. And we're not just talking about the 100 years of Queensberry rules. We're talking about 2,000 years to ancient Greece. People know how to throw hands. And that's why MMA guys are so basic. I'm not making Spong basic. I was a kickboxer myself professionally. That's what I did. It's just that when you fight without your legs and you're accustomed to that, you're not going to beat an elite level boxer. And I think Andy Ruiz is elite.
Yeah. Spong was the guy, Clarence, I brought that up because Spong was the champion kickboxer at one time. No, not today, but they just agreed to have a match in Triller. I think it came out today or yesterday. So a lot of people are talking.
Yeah, I shared it. I shared it on my page. And I was like, wait a minute. I had to look at it again because I thought it was a joke. I thought I was saying things. So when I wiped my eyes, I said, Andy, come on, man. Andy, you got all these athletes out there that you should, come on, Andy. This is the best you can do. He's another one where I question his career. I'm not too sure about him anymore. I used to be sure about him. I'm not sure about that guy anymore.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
Well, one thing, Todd, is that, Andy is clearly putting the money before the career. Because, he's right in the mix still, right? You talk about Usyk, you talk about Fury, you talk about Joshua. He is right in that mix. He could get a big money fight with any of those guys. And instead, he's going to knock out an ex-kickboxer. And, by the way, I was a kickboxer, but one thing I know is the sport never caught on, period. So you're talking about knocking out a guy from a B-level sport.
Yeah.
You know what he's gonna do? What he's gonna do is after he knocks this guy out, he's gonna piss a lot of people off. That's what's gonna happen. He's gonna piss a lot of people off because now people are gonna talk bad about him, they're gonna Twitter and everything, and then people are gonna call him out. So like you said, he's in the mix of all the fighters you just named. Instead of you trying to line something up with a King Kong Ortiz, which I think that would be a great bout. I think it'd be great. I've been wanting to see that fight for the longest. Make that happen, but instead you're gonna go get this guy, and like you said, he's not chasing his career. These guys nowadays, they're not chasing legacy. They don't care about being a Hall of Famer anymore. Look, I'm just looking for a good payday. I got a family to take care of. I got people that depend on me. I don't care about who you want to see me fight. Just point me into the direction where I can get the biggest check. And if I have to fight a guy on the street that break dances and you're gonna give me a lot of money for that, I'm gonna go with that guy. I'm all about getting paid. I don't care about fighting no best. I fight who I want to fight because I'm the one that makes the rules. So unfortunately it's sad, but then it is what it is.
Now, maybe Derek, let's talk a little bit about Shakur Stevenson, because you had a lot to say about him, as you think he's kind of the next star in boxing. Why do you feel that way?
Well, I think the proof is in the pudding. I mean, look, he was in New York, Clarence's area, and if I'm not mistaken, he beat all those guys in the amateurs. This isn't a secret. I think he beat Teofimo. Those guys that are world champions, Teofimo was unified lightweight champ of the world, right? I mean, Shakur was polishing him off in his amateur days, and he's gotten nothing but better. So, if Lomachenko has a bad day, he's injured, and loses to Teofimo, I'd hate to see what happens to him against Shakur. I think Shakur is just top of the class, man. I know a lot of people don't like him because he's defense-minded, but that's the sport of boxing, man. It's hit and not get hit. So I think he's a master. I think he's the next Floyd. And, yeah, it's just the way I feel about it.
Now, what do you think, Clarence? Since he's in your backyard, what do you think of Shakur?
First of all, I've had the honor and pleasure of meeting Shakur and his grandfather. They did an event out in New Jersey, Newark, his home, and I was able to be around them. A great group of people. Shakur is cut from a different cloth. He talks a lot of trash, but the thing I love about him, he backs it up at all times. And he'll tell you what he's going to do to you before he actually does it. He's special. And like Tank, we want to see him in there with the best. And this fight that's coming up with Oscar Valdez will be, to me, his first big test. And he's going to win that. Not just because I said he's going to win. It's just no disrespect. He's just a better boxer. Shakur is just something different with his defense. When he lost in the Olympics, that changed Shakur. And he had said to himself, after that, I'll never lose again. And he kept his word. He said, I'll never lose again. I don't like losing. And long as he keeps that mind, it's gonna be hard to beat him. You know what I mean? And like I said, he's still young. I think he's no more than 23, maybe 24. He probably has a good 10 years left in this game if he continues to be serious about it. But Shakur is something special. He's definitely something special. And like I said, between him, Tank, and Devin Haney, at some point I would like to see all three of those young men see each other. Before, not 5 years from now. I don't want it to be like a Pacquiao and Floyd where they waited too late and then whoever loses, you're blaming it on their age. We got to get it now while they're young. So that's how I feel about Shakur.
Well, I mean, I appreciate you guys coming on. Kind of went an hour here, which is usually kind of when I like to. But I want to let both of you guys kind of say a few things at the end. About anything, how people can follow you. Clarence, you could talk about your podcast also. So, Clarence, why don't you go first there?
Oh, well, like I said, you can follow me right here on Instagram, McClain Clarence, on the No Duck Zone podcast. I don't have particular days I go live. It's just like, I guess I just go live whenever I feel like it. But you're more than welcome to follow me. You'll always catch me live at these amateur fights. We have a big tournament in New York called the Ringmasters, which replaced the Golden Gloves. So it's no longer the Golden Gloves, it's the Ringmasters. And you'll see me there actually next week on the 22nd, I'll be in Manhattan, and then the next day on the 23rd. So basically, for the next 3 to 4 months, up until we get to the Garden with the finals, we got a lot going on there. So you can follow me. And like I said, any questions, you know, you're more than welcome to DM me. And I got a cookout, like I said, coming up back to school. We're doing something in August. We're trying to put something together. You don't have to be from New York to come. If you have any free time, as soon as I pick a date in August, I want everybody from all over the world to join us. This is everybody from different backgrounds. Come on and join.
And Derek?
So, yeah, I don't have that podcast yet, Todd. We've been talking about setting it up for a while. But if anyone wants to follow my fight news, it's at Derek Galanis on TikTok, or I put it also on Instagram at Derek Galanis. For any of your viewers who are interested in the Mafia, the new face of the mob, I also have a TikTok called at Derek Meyer Galanis. And 2 books. Warrior of the Light is my fight game book, and Greed and Fear of the Galanis Crime Family is my crime book. So, yeah, you can find me there and find me on social media, guys.
Now, if anyone has curiosity about the mob, maybe you could say some fights should follow you about that.
So, yeah, I mean, the mob is an organism, and any organism evolves to survive. You know, Clarence is right in the heart of it right there. And a lot of my contacts come from New York. What most mobsters have converted into is something called underground financiers. I term the coin in my book, but you could say they're Wall Street scammers now with the veneer of the old mob. And you'd be surprised how far that goes in finance. You know, I grew up with the Gambino brothers, Tommy and Tony, in Southern California. Both our fathers were in Terminal Island prison. And so I have a really good look at the inside of that world. And I can tell you also, Hunter Biden was in business with my family. And it's something nobody wants to talk about. It's the biggest kept secret in the open in America today. They talk about his laptop, but they don't want to talk about the fact that he was involved with Gambino affiliates or the biggest white-collar criminal or one of the top 10 in the world. So, yeah, if any of that interests you, I talk about all of it.
And your book's Warrior of the Light and Greed and Fear, right?
Yeah, those are the 2 names.
Well, I appreciate you guys two coming on. I know we couldn't get Sydney on, but I thought it was a great discussion. You know, I'm glad both of y'all can come on and do this. And maybe after the fight's over, we could do something. You know,
let's do it.
Yeah, because it's a big fight. And I wanted to watch it is because Clarence had brought it up on his show and have really done a good job talking about it.
Yeah, let's listen. You know what? I like it. Let's do it after the fight. Let's. It doesn't have to exactly be after the fight. It could be the next day if you want. But let's definitely do it. Let's set it up. Let's do it. Yeah, I like that.
All right, man. Well, I appreciate it. I hope you guys have a good day, and yeah, we'll definitely talk after the fight. See if it plays out kind of similar to what y'all might think.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Take care.
Thank you, Derek. I'm following you too, so you know now.
All right, brother. Am I following you? I'll follow you back. Don't worry.
All right. I just pressed the following button, so I'm following you.
Okay, brother. I'll follow you back.
All right. We'll get Derek.
All right. Y'all have a good one.
We'll get Derek's wife to send you some cookies. His wife can cook.
All right.
His wife can make
cookies,
bro. All right.
Oh, man. Definitely. All right, Todd. Thank you. I appreciate you.
Take care.